Hi, and welcome to the Luxembourg PE&VC Stories. Today's guest will be Pawel Bochniarz. He's the founding partner of Radix Ventures. Hi, Pawel, how are you?
Hello, Stefan. Nice to see you again, and congratulations on a fantastic event yesterday. And hello to everybody watching.
Thanks a lot, Pawel. It was really a pleasure to host you too. And indeed, yes, the Insights 2024 was a great edition, and we also have big ambitions also for the future then. Tell us more about Radix Ventures.
Yes. So we are a new kid on the block, and so to say, our fund announced the first close in July of this year. We started at 41 million. I'm happy to say we moved up to 48 just today, and we were joined by some new LPs. So we are happy to be here in Luxembourg. Our first fund was registered in Warsaw. We decided to now move our HQ here in Luxembourg and enjoy the benefits of this ecosystem.
So double congratulations, first for that success and also then for joining the Luxembourg ecosystem.
Thank you.
Could you tell us more about your main verticals? What kind of typical investments are you interested in?
Yeah, so first of all, we are a deep tech fund. So we focus on the most sophisticated technologies, frequently originating in the research world. Regionally, we are focused on CE, and there's an additional angle, which is environmental sustainability. Although we are an Article 6 fund, we still prioritize technologies, projects that have a positive impact on the environment.
We know that to integrate sustainability is not always that easy, but yes, you need courage and also determination.
Yeah, but honestly, for deep tech, it works very well. When you're working on a new advanced material, a new manufacturing process, it's typically that in the back of your head you have these environmental concerns. You want to reduce use of electricity, reduce waste, or reduce harmful emissions. So actually, it comes very naturally for us to have that angle as well.
Yeah, quite smart integration then. Makes sense. And investments, would you like to highlight a few or which you did then in the past, for example?
Yeah, so our first fund was focused only in Poland, and that obviously limited our scope, but we have made some really successful investments. One company is called Nevomo. It's actually introducing autonomous mobility to the railway infrastructure, a very exciting task. They just announced an MOU with Etihad Rail for a huge project in Saudi. Another company is called Noctiluca, and just 3 years after investing in the company, it was listed on the Warsaw Stock Exchange. So the valuation is like 20x towards when we joined the company. So and it's a chemical company in advanced materials for the display industry. So I think the first fund was a sort of proof of concept fund for us. We wanted to test our thesis focused on deep tech, and we found an abundance of interesting projects. And now, growing out of Poland, moving to other geographies in the region, we can be even more selective and really go for the best projects out there.
Okay, sounds great. And in order to fuel your growth, how do your operations look like?
So we are an SCSP, a sub-threshold fund here in Luxembourg. Our management company is located here as well, and the advisory company is based in Warsaw. Our core team is based in Warsaw, but we have venture partners scattered around the CE region. We have an excellent partner in Romania, a vice president of UiPath, the largest Romanian technology company. Marton Soke is our venture partner in Budapest, and he's a former head of Yahoo Labs. And Serhii Sokolenko is a Ukrainian, but with 20 years spent in Silicon Valley. So he's giving us access to Ukrainian ecosystem, but also is connecting us with everybody in the cloud and big data business over in the US. So this, we really work together. These are not passive venture partners. They take part in the selection process and supporting portfolio companies as well.
And also, any observations in the deep tech sector or industry you would like to share with our audience?
Yeah, absolutely. I encourage everybody to read a short article like this about the deep tech opportunities in CE, which was just published. What I can say, I think the deep tech sector in Central Eastern Europe, holds a tremendous promise. We have to remember that the region has a tradition to give birth to fantastic inventors like Nikola Tesla or researchers like Maria Curie. So the legacy is there. The educational system is very efficient, especially when you look at natural sciences and maths, computer science. If there were like World Olympics in computer science, the CE as a region would probably win it, beating even China. Amazing talent pool, but what I see now is that the timing is right. I think in the first couple of decades after the Iron Curtain fell, most entrepreneurs were focused on building service businesses, and now we have a new breed of entrepreneurs, and they more look at products to be scaled globally, and hence success of companies such as Skype or UiPath, which originated in the region.
Okay. You mentioned sustainability before, for example, with that material angle. Do you also have, as a VC, an ESG strategy? Is that important for you?
Well, it's our obligation to adopt an ESG policy. As a matter of fact, we are already working on it. We have another 6 months to adopt it. We'll probably beat the deadline. So I think before the end of the year, it will be there.
Okay. And as a newcomer then to Luxembourg, looks quite good on your side. What are your ideas about the ecosystem?
Right.
What would you like to share on that?
Yeah. So, the first reason why we opted for Luxembourg is that it's an ecosystem and that is very well known to LPs. Most of our LPs come from our region, but more and more are added from outside, from the US and hopefully also from Western Europe. And for them, we do not have to explain what a Luxembourg structure is. So this was the familiarity with the ecosystem was a major factor for us. Another driving factor was the stability of the regulations, and this is something that is a real mess in many jurisdictions in CE, including unfortunately Poland. The just tax regulations, supervisory authority policies on alternative investment vehicles change just too often, and it just makes it very difficult to navigate in such a complex system. And VCs are complex as they are. We don't need another layer of that.
Yeah. So no extra layer on that, and also we hear that quite often, that certainty and how could I say, constance in the rules and clear understanding are very important then also, and that's what you highlighted also for the LPs. They understand what and how it works.
Yes, and I think there is a certain. I'm early to the ecosystem, so perhaps my observations are not yet fully grounded. So I apologize for that. So I'm perhaps it's my first impression, but what I see is that sometimes in Poland. When there's a drive towards new regulations, let's just say GDPR, right? As an example, let's just take it as an example. We have the regulator has a tendency to adopt what's needed and then add something to it.
The famous gold plating. Yes. I think not many like it.
Yeah,
yes.
And then I think here I see more sort of conservative approach, more reluctance to go all in, and maybe just have a rational approach and adopt what is necessary, but not to create too much of a admin burden. And this is hugely important for us. Obviously, we all know that AML, KYC regulations are tightening, and that puts some extra work on our shoulders. But you have to do it, rationally, and not to, go overboard with these regulations. So we hope for a lot of, rationality here in that approach.
Yes, and that's also one of the mottos. Really, the directive, only the directive. And if we then also on top can add some interesting features, but remain always business pragmatic and friendly, that completely makes sense.
Absolutely.
Good, Pawel, that's very nice. On a more personal basis, that's always a little bit the question. Where are you coming from, but what did you study? What was also your first job?
Right, so I studied maths before moving on to economics, and I graduated from with a master's degree in economics.
In Poland?
In Poland, yes, at the University of Warsaw. But I launched my first company when I was 21. So I was still studying and launching my business. And
Wow.
before I graduated, I had 50 employees and a multi-million company. So I was sort of naturally pulled into that entrepreneurial path, and I became a serial entrepreneur. My first company was a recruitment business, and then I moved on to sort of more consulting, research focused work. I like to work with my head. I always like to have intellectually stimulating work. I was sort of gravitated towards consulting and research. And then at one point I made a transition to work more with innovation and startups, and this was through a technology transfer advisory. So I went through entrepreneurship advisory to technology transfer, and then I was just blown away by how big a challenge it is, and working with some of the brightest researchers in Poland, helping them monetize their inventions, and with a huge variety of them, from deep tech software to engineering, chemistry. I just found it so entertaining and so intellectually stimulating, and it brought me so much satisfaction when I finally succeeded. I licensed the technology, or we set up a joint venture between a researcher and an existing company, and I said, okay, that's what I want to do for the rest of my life. So I quit my all other engagements and I focused on this. I built an accelerator with MIT in Poland. I figured, if we should do deep tech support, let's work with the best. So we opened up in 2015 MIT Enterprise Forum in Poland. And then the next natural step was to build a venture fund. Since I already had access to fantastic deal flow, great academic entrepreneurs, it was just natural that I would want to invest in the best projects. So that's what happened, and in 2017 I launched my first fund.
Fantastic. A few takeaways to take out of that. For example, you having been very early as an entrepreneur, you having that flame that we love to hear. Sometimes you also hear that many successful entrepreneurs, once they have sold their firms, then also become VCs at the end via a little bit your different steps you took in consulting, but also technology transfer. And then also, as highlighted yesterday during the insights, to do fundamental research, how important it is to also help that, and then finally to have the proof of concepts or the products which you could extract. That's really interesting.
Thanks. I'm looking at it, in the same fashion. I think, it's so key to have a passion for what you do, and this passion for me comes from working with the very bright minds, fantastic entrepreneurs, very innovative people, but also the fact that their inventions have a real positive impact on this world. They can really make it better. And so this drives me, to get up early and work hard. If I'm able to, do my little bit to support them to grow, it's just really brings tremendous satisfaction.
Very inspiring and motivating. Great. And what would be your piece of advice to young talents who would not like to copy you, but who would like to learn from also your journey? What they should do or take, or let's say, add into consideration?
Yeah, my path was, a bit specific. I don't think it's possible to copy it. I think everybody has to find his or her own way. I'm not sure venture, capital should be the first job, after studies. I sort of see it more, I guess, like a mid-career choice. And you can come, I think, to venture from different other industries. But I think I've worked with some extremely talented people who, for whom, working in a venture as a analyst or associate was a great adventure, and they were fantastic at what they were doing. But then when they grew to more senior roles like investment manager, suddenly they felt like they lacked this real business hands-on experience as an entrepreneur or manager or advisor, and they felt unprepared to really support a portfolio company. So that gave me something to think about. So I would rather encourage somebody to perhaps try other things first, and then equipped with that experience and skills and contacts, move into VC. But I think it's an excellent career. I highly recommend it. As I said, when I found myself in the middle of that industry, I really felt like, okay, this is what I've been working for my entire life, and I'm happy with what I'm doing.
Very wise tip, honestly. It's very important also for people to know that there are different ways in order to enter that very interesting industry we're all working in, and also how inspiring it can be, and specifically when you multiply the experiences or then afterwards the expertise.
Absolutely. I think nowadays they also recommend people to do like a couple of years before, for example, you do an MBA, right? Yeah. Don't do it immediately after your undergrad studies.
Get experience.
Get some experience. Yeah. I think it makes perfect sense.
Super. And so, since you were directly an entrepreneur, did you have that inspiration directly in yourself, or did you have some specific persons or leaders around you who kind of gave you that flame?
Good question. Well, when I started, the market economy was just being launched or relaunched in Poland after 50 years of communism. So I was more driven by opportunities that I could see in the market. Than by a particular person that I wanted to sort of would be a role model for me, I think this is also what characterizes the entrepreneurs I'm working with, right? Even if they come from research, I mean, let's start with a problem. Let's start with an unsolved challenge out there in the market with a real need, and focus on how you can best fulfill it. But of course, there are excellent and many inspirational people. And I actually like to read biographies as well, and surprisingly, because it could be perhaps a little bit surprising, but the person that comes to my mind right now, and I'm actually in the middle of going through his biographies, a Catholic saint, Maximilian Kolbe, who is best known for the fact that he offered his life in a concentration camp for another prisoner. Who was a father of a family, so he was a martyr there. But it's less known that he was a tremendous entrepreneur, setting up a network of Catholic media, in the 30s before the war. He was actually publishing over 1 million copies of a paper monthly, which was quite unheard of in these days. He also experimented with radio stations. He had his own patent for, something we would call today a fax. So sometimes it's, you can find inspirations in the, people in different walks of life, not just within business, strictly.
A real pity when, yes, human history gets mad and we go through dark times, but yes.
But tough times give birth to tough people, right?
Yes.
So I think, maybe a side note, I just visited Ukraine a couple of weeks ago. I was at a startup conference there in Lviv. My first time since the war broke out. Before the war, I used to go there quite often, quite regularly. And what I see is exactly this. It's a testimony to the resilience of the Ukrainians and of the creativity. And they are working 24/7, to develop new technologies. You can see that they can achieve a lot with very limited resources. So actually, it was a very inspirational event, and actually, we're going to, present some Ukrainian opportunities to our LPs. We're going to most likely invest in at least 1 or 2 Ukrainian startups over the next years, and that's our contribution for this country to develop in these tough times.
Great respect to those resistance, and then also to have that creativity and strength and combativity to let's say, try to innovate and bring the right tools. Okay.
Exactly.
Now, on a lighter touch, any specific book or podcast you would like to share with our audience?
Right. Well, I used to read a lot about business literature because I wasn't prepared through my education to be an entrepreneur, so I had to catch up, reading quite a lot. And then at a certain point, I think my enthusiasm for that business literature has started sort of waning. It's like I read Peter Drucker's Practice of Management, which was I think had a huge influence on introducing the concept of managing of objectives, MBO, management by objectives, and so on, performance management, KPIs. It really stemmed from that. And then
many modern words which are absolutely used and integrated.
And then we had Peter Zenger's learning organization, which I think added a very nice human touch to that. And then I think Norton and Kaplan sort of integrated it in this balanced scorecard model. But this was in the 90s, right?
Yeah, but
and I think
you add on top different layers which you combine like Legos.
Honestly, I think from the 90s. My opinion is that not much has happened. I mean, of course, there was this couple, lean management, agile organization.
Yes, a little bit of tech, extra tech, yes, on top.
Yeah, but really, I think these concepts from Norton and Kaplan, balanced scorecard, the four perspective, the human, the operational, client, and financial. I think this is still a very useful framework when I work with entrepreneurs. It shows how value is created in companies, and that it all starts with people, right? So I'm not reading so much business, literature these days. But I think actually, as a society, we've done a tremendous advance. I mean, we've seen tremendous advancement in how we develop business. I mean, it can take just several years to build a global company nowadays. So we've gotten as humanity pretty good at it, right? I think the what is now missing is we don't seem to be doing equally well at managing countries, managing our political systems. So the books that I'm reading these days and that I find very inspirational have to do more with how there's an excellent book by a guy who just was named Nobel Prize winner in economics.
Okay.
Daron Acemoglu. He's a Turkish-American professor working at MIT, and the book is titled "Why Nations Fail." So I recommend it to anybody. We have the U.S. elections approaching. I think he's giving a very good walk through, history, and he's really doing an excellent comparison of the different states and giving very good reasons why certain countries may, progress quicker, while others don't, or even, they degrade as societies. So that's my recommended reading for anyone interested in that subject.
Fantastic. And again, here it's, let's say, not funny, but it's great to hear about the evolution of first your readings, to have that distance with what has kind of changed. Nowadays, even we could use cloud and Gen AI potentially to be even faster with creating a business, but to also then become macro. So to look at bigger topics, the large important ones in geostrategy.
You can't abstract from this macro context, when you do VC. I don't think you can, especially if you do deep tech, you have to understand the technology trends, the macro trends, and they also come from this, societal challenges, right? So it makes, I think, much sense to be up to date with that.
Pawel, thanks a lot for your inspired exchange. It was really a pleasure to host you today.
Thanks a lot for the invitation. Thank you for your attention.